Hey, Void. Hello again. So, excuse me. Doing a couple of these in a row, starts to wear on the old vocal cords. Okay, so, like I mentioned, I'm kind of making up my backlog from last weekend, and the weekends are usually when I do my Shutter track. Now, I mentioned I was kind of starting to go back and forth between going chronologically through Shutter and just picking and choosing a few that I actually just wanted to see. This one was kind of both, as it was the next one in my Shutter queue chronologically. And it had been a long time since I'd seen it, so I was quite happy to watch it again. Also, coupled with the fact that over the past couple of days, I was also watching In Search of Darkness, which is a documentary that goes into details on 80s horror. And, well, you can't get more 80s than the 1980 Prom Night. It is very 80s. So, I've seen Prom Night before. And in fact, I actually own a copy of Prom Night, but since I was already queued up Shutter, I just let it roll. Now, that said, my copy is on a multi box thing, which is a shame because I would actually like a better edition of Prom Night. So I actually bought this one used, but this is actually only like half of the collection, which I thought I was getting 10 movies. I got 5. But I was mostly buying this for Prom Night and Prom Night 2, which were actually the ones in here. Because when this was handed to me, I couldn't see what the disc was. The disc is the one that actually has all the ones. Oddly enough, I've actually reviewed like 2 other movies from this one collection. Dire Wolf, back when I reviewed my first year when I was doing February as a terrible movie month. And Killjoy, I also reviewed, I think, around the same time because. But this is actually my second copy of Killjoy because I also have it in another collection, so of course I do. Okay, tangent over. Prom Night. So, it's definitely one of the iconic early slasher films. And this one is interesting in that it tries to kind of do more of a sort of whodunit while setting you up with a obvious red herring along the way. Sort of in a similar fashion to My Bloody Valentine. So, this one, it's about a prom night. It's senior prom, and Jamie Lee Curtis is our lead and is wonderful as always. And essentially, this one starts with them getting ready for prom, but once the night hits, well, a certain group of students are being targeted and start vanishing. And the events leading up to and at the prom. So, the very beginning of the movie, we see a bunch of young kids playing a hide and seek, killer's gonna get you game in an abandoned building. Well, one of the unpopular kids wants to join, and well, ends up accidentally getting killed. Well, the kids who she mostly in an accident fell out a window, but it's largely because she was being chased around by essentially a group of bullies. Well, the kids don't say what happened, and there was a person, pretty much a ready scapegoat that was arrested for it, and well, they consider the case closed. And I think this is 6 or 7 years later. It actually says, I'm pretty sure it was 6. When away we go to prom night. So the the girl who died's older sister is played by Jamie Lee Curtis, and her twin brother is also present. And essentially, Jamie Lee Curtis is now dating one of the people who was involved in that incident. And however, the ringleader of that group of bullies from back then used to be dating him, and so there's kind of some tension there, as they seem to be almost setting up a Carrie-like incident to happen during prom night. However, it's like the movie is pretty much Carrie, but with that gets interrupted by a slasher movie if you take out the psychic powers. Though, well, not quite, because Carrie was. Jamie Lee Curtis isn't like a outcast like Carrie was, but they are a very similar prank is happening, except for it's. Well, it's not a bucket of blood, but it's a kind of a bait and switch to harass her during the coronation ceremony. But that gets derailed by the appearance of the killer. Well, so when on the day of the person who was blamed for the incident and in the beginning is broken free and has killed at least one person and is heading in that direction. However, we all know that that person didn't kill the little girl. So it does indicate someone saw them, and maybe it's this person coming back to get revenge. But I'm not going to reveal who it is, but it's set up so obviously to be a red herring that it's a red herring. I would do like the kills are nowadays would be kind of standard, but at the time they were fairly shocking, and it's done very well. The gore effects are very decent, especially for early 80s, and this movie did not look like it had a very big budget, so it does pretty well with what it's given there. I also appreciate that they almost kind of do a bit of a reversal. You know the old adage, if you have sex in a horror movie, you're gonna get killed. This one, there's a girl that pretty much decides to finally have sex, but once the process starts, she pretty much pulls away from it, says no, doesn't want to, and well, she still gets killed anyway. So, kind of like that's not gonna save you always, even back in the 80s. Also, I like the fact that Leslie Nielsen's in this. He was also in Creepshow recently, so I've been seeing a lot of Leslie Nielsen. But seeing him, like, Creepshow is still goofy. Here he is actually playing a very serious role as the principal and our lead's father. And he doesn't have a very big role, but the role, but he is very memorable whenever he's on screen. And it's weird seeing Leslie Nielsen in a more serious role, but he nails it. He nails it. Otherwise, it is a fairly by-the-numbers slasher film, but it did a lot of these numbers before they were common. So, you gotta give it some points there. Like, a lot of this stuff is tropes and stereotypes, but it's one of the movies that pioneered those tropes and stereotypes, so I gotta be a bit lenient on it. Overall, it's a satisfying 80s throwback. It's not great, but it's classic and it is fun. So, I'll give it. I will go 6 MacGuffins. It's iconic, but it's not like one of the most iconic. It's no Halloween, and I will say it seems like there was more thought put into it than like a Friday the 13th, or at least a later Friday the 13th. But for me, those ones are still the hokiness adds something. So this one is fairly standard, but if you like an old school slasher, you can't go wrong with Prom Night. Alright. I'll see you guys soon. Yeah. Got, I think, 3 more on my docket, so see if I can get how much I can get through tonight. See you soon, Void.